The lecture hall of the Galactic Institute fell silent as Professor Zexthor projected the holographic images above the amphitheater. Hundreds of alien students from dozens of species leaned forward, their various sensory organs focused on the terrifying figures that materialized in the air. These, the professor announced, his translator implant rendering his clicks and whistles into standard galactic, are the legendary war gods of the forbidden sectors. Ancient beings of immeasurable power who once carved through entire star systems, leaving nothing but silence in their wake. Elena sat in the back row, trying not to laugh. The human exchange student had been at the Institute for 3 months now, and this wasn't the first time the galactic curriculum had gotten Earth history hilariously wrong. The tallest one, Professor Zexthor continued, zooming in on a figure wielding what appeared to be primitive kinetic weapons, was known as the Destroyer of Armies. Legends say he could survive in any environment, consume any poison, and his battle cry could shatter mountains. Elena squinted at the grainy image. The timestamp in the corner read, Earth circa 1944. She pulled out her datapad and cross-referenced the facial recognition software she'd been building. 3 seconds later, she had a match. Her hand shot up. Yes, human Elena. The professor's eye stalk swiveled toward her with evident reluctance. The human student had a habit of correcting his carefully researched lectures. That's not a war god, Professor. That's my Uncle Bob. The lecture hall erupted in shocked chirps, whistles, and electromagnetic pulses of disbelief. Impossible. Zexthor's carapace flushed an indignant purple. The war gods existed millennia before your species achieved spaceflight. These images were recovered from surveillance drones sent to monitor pre-contact civilizations. Elena stood up, her datapad projecting her own hologram. Yeah, about 78 years ago, to be exact. That's my great-great-uncle, Robert McCarthy. He was a Marine at Iwo Jima. She swiped through several images. Uncle Bob at a family barbecue, Uncle Bob holding her as a baby, Uncle Bob at his 98th birthday party last year. The resemblance was undeniable. But the legends, another professor sputtered from the faculty section. The tales of these beings spread across 100 worlds. They spoke of warriors who could endure temperatures that would vaporize most species, who needed only minimal sustenance, who could regenerate from grievous wounds. Well, yeah, Elena shrugged. Humans are pretty tough. Uncle Bob did serve in the Pacific Theater during World War II. Extreme heat, limited supplies, combat injuries, that was just Tuesday for those guys. Your relative survived a military conflict? Asked her friend Adam, a human male from the engineering track who'd just walked in late. He slid into the seat next to her. Professors calling Uncle Bob a mythical war god, Elena whispered. Adam glanced at the hologram and snorted. Is that Bob McCarthy? My grandpa served with him. He's not a war god. He's a retired plumber from New Jersey who complains about his knees. Professor Zexthor's translator struggled to process. The concept of New Jersey? You mean to tell me, the professor said slowly, his academic career flashing before his eye stalks, that the beings we've studied for decades, whose legendary exploits have been carved into the monument of eternal warriors on 6 different worlds, are just ordinary humans? I mean, ordinary is doing some heavy lifting there, Adam interjected. World War II vets are pretty extraordinary. But yeah, they're not gods. They're just people who did what needed to be done. A crystalline student in the 3rd row raised a prismatic appendage, but the records show they fought without personal shield generators, without plasma weapons. They used chemical propellant ballistic weapons and wore fabric for protection. Yeah, that tracks, Elena confirmed. They didn't have fancy tech, just grit, determination, and really bad coffee, according to Uncle Bob. And they survived? Another student whispered in awe. Not all of them, Adam said quietly. A lot of good people didn't come home. That's why the ones who did are so important to us. The lecture hall fell into a contemplative silence. Professor Zexthor slowly lowered his teaching appendage. I need to revise my entire thesis. He looked at the images with new understanding. These aren't war gods. They're something perhaps more impressive. Mortal beings who achieved legendary status through courage alone. If it helps, Elena offered. Uncle Bob would be thrilled to know aliens think he's cool. He's always said his best days were behind him. This would definitely go in his Christmas card. Your uncle is still alive. A methane breather gasped, their suit fogging with shock. But these images are ancient. 78 solar cycles. He's 101, Elena said proudly. Still does his own yard work. Adam pulled up his own datapad. Actually, Professor, if you want to talk to actual war veterans, the Earth delegation is hosting a military history panel next month. We've got vets from every major conflict since World War II. My grandpa's giving a talk on the Korean War. Professor Zexthor's carapace slowly shifted from purple to a thoughtful blue. Human students, would your Uncle Bob be willing to speak to my class? Elena grinned. I'll call him tonight. But I should warn you, he's going to spend at least 20 minutes showing you pictures of his garden tomatoes. I find that acceptable, the professor said with quiet dignity, as the class dissolved into excited chatter about meeting a legendary warrior. Adam leaned over to Elena. Your uncle is going to love this. Oh, absolutely, she laughed. Wait until he hears there are monuments to him on 6 worlds. Mom's never going to hear the end of it. Somewhere in New Jersey, Uncle Bob sneezed while watering his tomatoes, completely unaware that he was considered a mythical war god across a quarter of the galaxy. He'd probably just complained that the aliens didn't bring beer. But that was humans for you. Legendary, and they didn't even know it.